Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by. I hope you've had a great Christmas and Happy New Year to you all. I just wanted to talk about my 10 favourite shots from 2021. I'm going to jump straight into it because I know these things can be time consuming. So, here we go. Okay, so this first shot is at Lower Wraith Reservoir up near Haworth in Yorkshire, and it was early 2021 and we'd gone for a walk up on the moors, and it was a seemingly normal day. It was fairly fresh, and then the heavens opened and it started snowing, which was fab. My little girl was with me and she hadn't seen snow like this before, so she was really excited. But anyway, I saw this image just as we were setting off onto this walk. And it was one of those images I wanted to capture, and it just presented itself in front of me. I took this photograph and it turned out exactly to be as I wanted it to be. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes there can be a disparity between what you see with your eyes and what you can actually capture with your camera. A lot of photographers will tell you about that frustration sometimes. It's not always the case, it does happen. But this is exactly what I was seeing with my eyes. Just the levels of snow and just this beautiful structure coming across this reservoir, and then sort of how it was getting sort of faded out in the background with all this snow coming down. But I like what's going on with this. I like the thirds in this. So if I just put a layer in here, I'll show you what I mean. So I like this line coming across here. You've got some thirds going on across the image. Let me just do this properly. So yeah, you've got these lines, so there's some thirds going on. What I do like as well, so you've got this structure which is a pump house. I think I don't really know what the structure is, apart from it being quite attractive, but I like the fact that it comes across 2/3 into the image, and then you've got this structure of these trees, these vertical lines of the trees going up here, and I like some of these horizontal lines coming across the image, as well as the structure of the actual building in the foreground as well, and then so obviously some of the vertical structure of the trees going on here and at the top. Let me just get rid of that line, these ones, and then the roof line coming across here, back of that field. It just kind of works. So if I turn the image off, you're left with this. So it kind of balances out. You've got thirds going on, you've got some depth, really nice depth going on with the snowfall. I like the structure of the trees that sit behind this building in the foreground, and I really like the buildings in the background, and it's just a lovely snowy scene. So that's my first one. It was taken on a 70-200 zoom at 70mm, 1/320th of a second, 5.6 f5.6, and ISO 320, and it was aperture priority, and it was handheld. Hey. So that's number one. Okay, number two is this one. This is at a place called Judy Woods, which is local to us. There's a little beck running through the whole woods. It's quite a pretty place. It's nice to walk through, country walks. A lot of people use it there for walking dogs and stuff like this. It's a very pretty woods. And I came across this little fall in the woods and this kind of rock structure in front of it, and I just liked it. I spent a bit of time there, set the tripod up and took this shot. But I quite like how all the trees sort of are hanging down and pointing towards where the waterfall is. Just put a line in here. So all these just coming down here, sort of pointing towards this fall, and the line of the rock at the top pointing toward where the water's falling. I love that. And also you've got these lines coming up to meet, almost you can just about see them coming up to meet the centre as well. So it really sort of balances well. There's a lot going on in this image. You see these lines here as well coming across. They all kind of work to point at this, which is the focal point of the image, the waterfall itself. And I just like it because it's interesting. Your eye follows it around. It's a pretty place. And I did a long exposure because I like, freezing the water out to making it look crystal-like, which is a trick you do with long exposures with water. It's something I've done time and time again, as well, if you've seen this channel before. Yeah, and it just sits well with me. I really like this image. It's a nice place. I took my time and found a nice exposure, and it just works for me. So that's number 2. The settings for this was a 17-40 wide angle at 17mm. It was 1 second exposure, f14, ISO 320. It was manual on a tripod, and that's number 2. Judy Woods in West Yorkshire. Okay, number 3. I've called this image Digley Tree. It's a place called Digley Reservoir, also in Yorkshire. And we'd gone for a walk, and I saw this composition out on the hill, and it was across the water. So I set the tripod up and put my 70-200 zoom on, and I saw this composition sitting on the hilltop, and I just thought I'll try and capture that. And what I really like about this image, I'll just point this out as well, are these kind of lines going on from there to there, over to there, and this wall in the foreground. And then you've got your focal point, which is your tree here. And then also, if you see, there's like a split in the cloud, the tone in the cloud, which I noticed. So if you just turn the image off, you've got this kind of composition going on, which I quite like. And then obviously some interest as well with some more structures here and there. So it's quite a simple composition, but it works quite well for me, and I quite like sort of the end result. It's very moody, looks very stark and barren, but you know, it's out on the moors. On the hilltop there, I just like this tree sat there, all proud on its own. So I took the photograph, set the tripod up, took the photograph, and ended up really liking this image. 70-200, 188mm, it's 1/20th of a second, f18, ISO 50. It was manual on a tripod. Yeah, Digley Tree. That's number 3. Number 4, and this is one of my favourite places to visit locally. This is near Hebden Bridge in West Yorkshire. It's a place called Gibson Mill, which is at Hardcastle Crags, which is a National Trust site. It's fantastic, beautiful place. And this mill gets photographed quite a lot. But I was there, and on this particular morning I just quite liked the light. I had my kit with me, so I took this shot. I want to go back and get some different shots of this at some other point, and then sort of explore the area a bit more. But I really like this shot. I like how you kind of, all the lines kind of lead to the mill, your eyes drawn to it in many ways. I mean, that's a lot to do with the structure, obviously, but yeah. So if I just, again, let's have a look at some of the lines. Some of these lines pointing towards the mill. And you've got this sweeping line round here, coming round. And then you've got lines coming from the path on the other side, then down from the trees, obviously down from this side. And then this arc line of this path coming round as well, all pointing towards this structure. So it's fairly simple composition. I've sat the focal point right in the middle of the composition, just because it works. I like the reflection of the sky. I just like how you're drawn to the building. It's a pretty place, nice place to look at. This works really well black and white as well. Just show you an example of that in black and white. And obviously it works in colour. So quite happy with that shot. Quite moody, a little bit overcast. But yeah, nice place. And I like this shot. 17-40, EF 17-40, it's 17mm, 1/500th of a second. ISO 320, f8, and it's aperture priority, and it was handheld. Yep. So that's number 4. Okay, moving on. Number 5. This is out at a place called Ogden Water, again another local walking spot that we go to quite often. And we were just walking around. I took my kit with me, and I take the kit pretty much everywhere I go, to be honest with you. And I saw these bulrushes. So this was handheld. I perched myself. I didn't have my tripod on me at the time, so I perched myself on this fence top and held the camera as steady as I could, and got the settings pretty much just right as I needed them. But I quite like this reflection in the water, and I just like the colours of the rushes. These yellows and these greens. I just like the hues that were involved. And I like, you just used a square crop on this image because it worked for this image. And it kind of speaks for itself, really. It's just a mirrored image. You can see the composition. I just like how it worked. So nothing really else to talk about other than it is what it is, and I quite like it. And it was a 70-200 zoom at 188mm, so nearly full zoom. 1/160th of a second, f5, ISO 640, it's aperture priority, and it was handheld. It's number 5. Really like that shot. Okay, next shot. This is one of my very favourites from last year. There are a load of sea defences. This is near Bridlington. There's a place called Fraythorpe Beach, and I had to wait till the tide had come right up to these stones. Sometimes the high tide doesn't get to the stones, so I had to wait for a swell where the tide came straight across these stones in order to get this photography at all. And there's loads of these old sea defences from World War II scattered along the beach, and they're all full of barnacles and seaweed. They're fantastic objects. But this is one of the images that I liked. I took quite a lot. I mean, I've written a blog about it. You can find that on my website should you want to go and have a read, and you can see the other images involved with this shoot. But this one specifically I quite liked, and it's just simple centre frame. You've got some thirds going on, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I like the colour contrasts. I like the hues that are in there, and I like sort of the history behind it. I just like what it is, basically. Some really long exposures. I was using a 10-stop filter to get that water really milky and just getting all the movement out of the water. So if we have a look at this in terms of the composition, you've got thirds going on here, and obviously a centre structure. Let's do that properly. You've got this centre structure pretty much going through like that. So you've got obviously the sky here, you've got the subject matter right in the centre of the image, and then you've got a bit of foreground here. So I quite like it. It's very simple, but I quite like how it works. I just find it quite beautiful. I was messing around with timings for quite some time, trying to figure out, you know, just how these were going to work. It was difficult to see quite how they'd worked out on the back of the camera on the viewer, so I really needed to wait to get back and start editing them to see what I had got. But I really like this structure, and it's really interesting that these things, if you go and read about them, I did a bit of research about these old structures from World War II, and it's fascinating, you know, just how useful they were in stopping a landing enemy coming up on the beaches on the east coast of Britain. Yeah, it was interesting finding out about them. But I really like this image. I like the structure. I quite like how all the tonal values work in it. Yeah, pretty pleased with it. 17-40 was the lens I used. The 24mm is 216 second exposure. f20 ISO 50. It was in bulb mode on a tripod, the 10-stop filter, 3.6 minute exposure to get all that sea milky white, and it worked quite well. There's a bit of movement in the sky as well. Yeah, good shot. I liked it. It's good fun getting them as well. Yeah, go and read the blog that I wrote about it. Let me tell you a bit more about it. So that's number 6. Number 7. This is a fabulous structure. This is out at Flamborough Head, East Yorkshire. The Drinking Dinosaur, a beautiful rock formation on the coastline there. Visited by many, photographed more often than you care to mention probably. But this is a shot that I took. We were visiting, it was a really brief visit, so I didn't have much time there. But I thought I'd take a shot of this thing whilst I was there. Wasn't particularly dramatic in terms of the sky and stuff like that, but it didn't really matter to me. You don't always need that to create memories or to create decent imagery. This was the one thing that I did do with this was, again, I used a 10-stop filter. It was a long exposure. It was a 93 second exposure, f22. 17-40 was the lens. It was at 25mm. It was in bulb mode, 10-stop filter on a tripod. Yeah, it was like a 93 second exposure, as I say, and that was just to sort of make that sea milky again, just to wash it out, to get rid of some of the movement in it. And it's also very stylized, that kind of shot as well, so you end up with some interesting patterns going on in the sea. I don't know if you can see, I'm just going to zoom in to the shot here. There were a load of seals on the beach. You see them all just there. It's just quite a few seals on the beach. It was fantastic to see them all there. They were making a load of noise, and many of them were fighting with each other. It was quite funny to watch. And the time we spent there, it was just kind of magical, really. Magical place. It's beautiful on the coast. I always love spending time on the coast, and it was just good to get this shot, really. Really interesting structure. It'd be nice to get back there one time, you know, in the morning, at sunrise, and get that drama in the sky. That would be good. Again, if you just look at the sort of the composition, you've got this line coming across here, but the line in the sea, and then you've kind of got this arc line coming across, and a little bit of a structure here. So in terms of balance, it kind of works, and it draws your eye around the image. So I'm quite happy with how it turned out. Yeah, cool. And that's number 7. Number 8. Now this is one of my favourite shots. Let's look at the state of that. Magical. So this is a place called Kilchurn Castle and Loch Orr in Scotland. Went and spent some time there in October this year. Now this was on this particular day, I witnessed 4 seasons within the space of about 20-25 minutes. The weather is, you know, changeable in Scotland, as anybody that's been and spent some time up there will tell you. It was really difficult getting this shot, believe it or not, because the rain was coming straight at me. So it was really difficult trying to keep the lens clean of water, free of water, so there wasn't any blobs all over it. I had about 5 or 6 lens cloths in my bag, and by the time I'd finished this shoot, all of them were soaking wet through. So it was a real job trying to keep the lens clean. When I first got there, it was dull, overcast, really almost black. You know what I mean? There was no colour in the landscape whatsoever. And then this storm swung around from the south, coming across this loch, and I could see a break in the clouds. It was really interesting because I kind of saw this when I was looking behind me. I saw this patch of blue moving around the back of me, and the sunshine just poking out of this gap in the clouds every now and then. And I just thought, I had this thought that there might be a rainbow. If you spend enough time, you know, out in the world, you kind of know how light works, especially if you're a photographer. You know how light works, and when it's raining, you know that if the light's behind you, there's going to be a rainbow somewhere in front of you. So I hoped that this might happen. You could see the light changing in front of me, so it was quite interesting. And then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, this double rainbow appeared over this honeypot shot up in Scotland. It's photographed to death. It's one of those locations. And I had my kit set up. Like I said, the only problem with it was just keeping the lens dry. I did my best, and this is the shot that I got. There's 2 shots that I got that I'm quite pleased with, but this one is just absolutely belting. Quite happy with it. It's a really simple composition. If we talk about that just a little bit, you've got the thirds going on here. You've got the structure of these rainbows coming across that sit in the middle of those thirds, and obviously with the subject matter sat on that bottom line as well. And then you've got a bit of interest. There are hills coming up. You'll see it perhaps a little bit in the other shot. Either side, you can't see them in this shot. But it's a dead simple composition. And then this wonderful rainbow, double rainbow appearing over the castle. I couldn't have wished for anything more, really. I love how, if you look at rainbows, I love how under the main rainbow it seems lighter, but it's fascinating how that works. Yeah, I love this shot. Dead simple, At a beautiful place, happened in front of me. And this is the other shot, so it was about 2 minutes apart. I think it was just moving away, but I took this shot as well. I think it's quite as good as the other one, in my opinion. But you can see some of the background hills as well, and this patch of blue coming across here, just to give some different interest. Again, you've got the thirds going on, so the composition really hadn't changed much. There's that shot, but my favourite one was the other one. And you can see, let me just zoom in a bit, you can see the rain, you can see how it's lashing down. Yeah, and suffice to say, I got absolutely drowned. When I got back to the car, there wasn't any of me that wasn't wet. My kit was all sodden wet through. Yeah, challenging sometimes, landscape photography, really challenging. There was a bit of sleet, bit of rain, bit of sunshine. It was crazy, and I got this fantastic shot anyway. So this rainbow shot was 17-40 at 19mm, 1/15 of a second, f/16, ISO 50, and it was manual on a tripod. Anyway, that's number 8. Number 9, this one. This place is called Castle Stalker, again, west coast of Scotland. You might all know it from the Monty Python films, but it is a beauty spot. It's a honeypot shop location again, and while I was there very briefly, and managed to get quite a few shots of the place actually. There's some rails that run down into the water, and I got quite a few nice compositions of those. The weather changed again quite a bit whilst I was there, as it does in Scotland, so I've got quite a few different shots with different light, which I was pleased about. The problem I had when I was there, I'd just come from the previous shot, the Kilchurn Castle, where all my kit had got really wet, and I was trying to sort of focus on the building, on the actual castle, and I couldn't see anything because like all my not my lenses, but the viewer was all steamed up. It's got water inside the camera, and I was hoping it hadn't got on the sensor. Luckily it hadn't, but yeah, my viewer also, the screen on the back of the camera was all steamed up, and the actual viewer itself, the eye viewer, was all steamed up. I found it really difficult making these compositions at all, and trying to get things in focus. Just couldn't see anything through the viewfinder, but I did what I could, and luckily, through experience and a bit of patience, I managed to get everything in focus and get the desired results from this location. But it's a fantastic place. I managed to get a varied amount of shots because the light changed quite a lot whilst I was there, so I was quite pleased with the shots that I got. But this is one of my favourite ones. Just like the mood, I love how the weather's moving across it from left to right. I like the fact that I managed to flatten out the water quite some, and I like the fact that there's a load of weed interest in the front of the structure as well. Really simple composition. If you talk about the composition, you've got this line sitting through here, and just the structure, and very, very slight image in the background like that. And I like just some of this movement here. Kind of just draws you a little bit, I'm hoping, towards the castle. And then of course, one thing I really do like is how clouds move in this direction. So if you just turn the shot off, that's the composition. Quite simple and effective, yes. And it's a beautiful place. You know, many of these places up in Scotland are fantastic and well worth a visit, and well worth going up to photograph. Castle Stalker, and it was a 17-40, this particular shot, 40mm, a 94-second exposure, f/22, ISO 50, and it was in bulb mode with a tripod and a 10-stop filter. So that's this shot, quite pleased with it. Now this shot was towards the end of my time in Scotland in October. It was the last night, and light had changed. This was quite close to where we were staying, near the cottage that we had, and the light just changed outside. And actually it was my wife that shouted because I'd gone upstairs to chill out, and get stuff packed up, and just, you know, I was going to watch something and get a shower and just, you know, chill out. And my last night, I was going to have a glass of whiskey. And my wife shouted at me, because if you've seen the light outside, and I had a look, threw all my kit together as fast as possible, shot out the door, because where we were, this lake was literally about half a mile away from where we were staying. And we'd been there on a couple of occasions before, so I knew the location would offer a great mirror for all this fantastic light in the sky. So I don't know how to pronounce this place. I think it's Tainult. It's at Loch Etive in Scotland. Yeah, so I raced down to this location, and I got many shots. I stayed there for about, I think it was about an hour and a half. The light, obviously, it was the fading light, last light of the day, and the sky just changed and offered so many wonderful reflective mirror shots like this. You couldn't fail to get a good image. Dead simple composition. Like I say, if we look at the composition, just a simple mirrored image. And I like the interest in the sky though, is this, all these that lead your eye around the image, this kind of wonderful, almost like a feathered effect going on. So it isn't very complicated in terms of the composition. It doesn't need to be. It just is what it is. Very beautiful. I just love being there and just breathing it in, watching it unfold. It's very peaceful. It was just, when you pinch yourself sometimes when you're just looking at such beauty unfold in front of you, it's quite healing in many ways. But I'm really pleased with this image. It was quite interesting whilst I was there. This swan came to see me. This is just an iPhone shot. I took this literally as I was setting up my kit, and this swan paddled over to see what I was doing. I wished I'd got my kit ready to get a shot with my Canon really, but it soon lost the interest and swam off. But yeah, it was interesting that he'd come and had a bit of a nosy to see what I was up to. And I got some drone shots as well whilst I was there, up in the sky, and you could see the lake beyond this horizon line. So it was all good fun. Just a fantastic location. Really pretty. And that's number 10. That's my 10th shot. That's a 17-40, the lens, EF 17-40. It's a 17mm, 1/10 of a second, f/16, ISO 500 on a manual setting, and it was on a tripod. And like I say, I spent a lot of time there taking loads of shots, and right into the blue hour. So I've got some fantastic shots from there. Really pretty place to be. They're my 10 shots. Now, I've thrown in a bonus one because I think, interestingly, I think this is probably my favourite shot from last year. I just love it, absolutely love it. It was while I was at Hardcastle Crags and taking some shots of the water and local area. It's where Gibson Mill is that we've had a look at in previous shots today. But it was just this sycamore bud opening up, and it was red in colour rather than sort of lime green. It just fascinated me. Just its delicacy, really. So I spent a little bit of time just trying to get a nice composition with that kind of bouquet in the background, you know, just so it worked against something interesting in the background. I was always going to drop and blur the background out, but I just love this shot. It's just so delicate, and it's just this, you know, life and new beginnings. I just think it's wonderful. Can you see this little bit of spider web here, just clinging to it as well? It's a fascinating shot. Really beautiful. Yeah, it just sits well with me. I think I love the umbrella shape of it. I like the fact that it's just new beginnings, new life, doing its own thing. Sat there looking all pretty. So I took a shot of it. Compositionally, dead simple. Yeah, you've got this idea of thirds coming through here with the subject matter in the middle. That's kind of what I was aiming at. Yeah, thirds, and then it's quite central in the image. So a dead simple composition as well. I like some of this bokeh going on in the background here. It just gives the background a little bit of interest. And you can see the bokeh all kind of sits in the middle third as well of the image. And then obviously you've got some interest in this tree in the foreground here, blurred out. So quite a simple composition, but nice anyway. And a real simple image. Yeah, I just like it. Again, it's funny, really. What do you say about your work? I respond to the world around me kind of naturally. I sometimes find it difficult to talk about shots and why I like them. So you probably hear me I've probably said quite often, it just sits well with me. It's a phrase that I use because that's pretty much it. Why do I like something? I saw it. I wanted to capture it. Much of the time I know what I want to do with the edit. I usually know what I want to do with the edit when I've taken the photograph. Not all the time, but usually I've got a kind of a vision in my head of what I want to do with the edit when I'm in the field, which is really helpful. I think that's a lot to do with the fact that I know the software I use quite well. I know what I want to do, so that can inform a shot as well, because knowing your software and knowing the tools that are available to you can inform how you actually take a photograph. So it's worth knowing all these things. It's worth being kind of proficient with Lightroom, with Photoshop, and it can very much help you actually when you're actually making compositions, because it's that extra bit of information about what it is you want to do with something. So yeah, and that was very much the case in this scenario. Just wanted to make it a little bit ethereal, wash out some of the blacks, not too much, just a little bit, yeah, and just make it look a bit dreamy. But I really like this shot. That's number 11. 70 to 200 zoom is at 163 millimeters, 1/1000th of a second, at f4.5, ISO 640. It was aperture priority and it was handheld. Okay, and that's the bonus one, number 11. Yay! So there you go. These are some of my favourite shots from last year. I really enjoyed taking them. I enjoy travelling around and getting these shots in all these various places in the countryside. It's very much a passion, and I love it very much. Hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate you coming by. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video, some of the shots that I've taken this last year. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hit like if you've enjoyed it. Hit subscribe if you've not done so already. And I will catch you in the next video. Take care. Happy New Year to you all. Have a great year. Stay well. Have a great day. See you later. Bye bye.